The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
Welcome to another edition of Dinner with the King here at King Jerry Lawler's Memphis Barbecue Company. Another day, another meal for me here on the podcast. I am Glenn Moore, joined here by WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. Jerry, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I think we're going to have to open up a Hall of Fame for the barbecue restaurant. You know, we have my club down on Beale Street, of course, is Jerry Lawler Hall of Fame Bar and Grill, and you've set some eating records down there. You're capable of being inducted into that Hall of Fame with those fried ribs. Now, aren't the fried ribs there great?
Amazing, and the champagne's fantastic too.
Right. Well, and then of course here, I think you're fast approaching Hall of Fame status. Eating here at the barbecue restaurant out here on Germantown Parkway.
Now, who do I get to induct me for the Hall of Fame?
Well, I would have to induct you, of course. But this is one of those things where I have to induct everybody that gets into the Restaurant Hall of Fame.
Oh boy! Well, I'll be honored.
I'm the one that decides you've eaten enough here to deserve being in our Hall of Fame. We're gonna have pictures on the wall over here, and your picture could be the first one.
There we go. Could it just be a picture of my belly?
Oh gosh. We're trying to draw business, not run people away.
I'm gonna try to lose. 2018 about losing the belly, Ken. It's all about eating right, but I will have a cheat day every time I come down here for some barbecue. Yeah,
well, you know, on March the 11th is going to be our 1-year anniversary, so that would be a great day for you to get inducted into the Eating Hall of Fame here at the restaurant. And it was going to be a great day anyway. We're going to have all kind of things starting at noon on March the 11th. Let me get this plug in. Right here at the barbecue restaurant on Germantown Parkway. It's going to be a big celebration. We're going to be doing all kind of stuff. We're going to start at noon. Everybody's going to be eating. Of course, we're going to have all kind of stuff going on. But we got trivia contests. We got all kind of things. And then I think around 3 o'clock, we're going to have live wrestling. We're going to have the ring set up like we did when we had our grand opening out here. We're going to have live wrestling right here in the parking lot of our barbecue restaurant. So. That's when you need to come down, Glenn, and we might put you in the Hall of Fame that day.
I'll be honored, King. I'll be honored, and it would be such a great resume.
So everybody, you need to come out and you'll see the big whammy of Glenn getting inducted into the Restaurant Hall of Fame, live wrestling, all kind of good stuff is going to be going on March the 11th. So come on out and join us here.
And then March 8th is the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So,
that's right. You know, you told me that last week. I didn't realize. It doesn't seem like we've been doing this for a year.
No, it doesn't. We have We're going to have around 50 shows in the bank for the show when March 8th rolls around. So, and I have some special guests planned. I know you don't like guests, King, but you don't mind if I go out and bother these people to come on the podcast.
Yeah, right. If you can get them to come on, that's good. Just don't make me ask them.
I kind of teased it on the Dinner with King Twitter account, but Dutch Mantell has agreed to come on the podcast, so we're going to have Dirty Dutch on the show in the coming weeks. So that'd be a great interview.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So.
Man, me and Dutch have so much history in Memphis. I mean, we have so much history. Once we met. We found out so many things that we've had so many things in common. It was almost like we were twin brothers from different mothers because we were both born on the exact same day, November 29th, 1949. Wow. But anyway, so we're the exact same age. I think Dutch is actually a few hours older than me. I was born at like 8 o'clock in the evening. And he was born sometime in the daytime of that day on November 29th. So we've had a lot in common. And man, you know, of course he's lives in Nashville now and has he meant so much to our Tennessee wrestling. He and I had he's almost up there on the level with Bill Dundee and I. In other words, I think Bill Dundee and I had more matches against each other than Dutch and I. But as far as the quality of matches and the drawing the fans and sort of that sort of stuff, Dutch was one of the best we ever had here.
Yeah, so look forward to having him come on the podcast. He has his own podcast, but to have him come on and you guys can reminisce about the good old days. Will be a great podcast. People love the Jeff Jarrett interview from last week, and look for Jeff Jarrett to come on to talk about Memphis Wrestling a little more in depth when we have more time with him as well. So look for those.
Jeff, if you've watched, man, he has been snowed under with all of this, all the media that he's gotten about, being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. So you're right. And he promised us both that when all of that dies down after WrestleMania, we'll be able to get Jeff back on and really delve deeply into this history here in Memphis wrestling and how that all went down.
Well, then also, the end of last week's episode, we put out a call to action, so to speak, to all our listeners to send us a photo of where you listen to the podcast, and we got a ton of photos.
Yes, we did.
And there is a couple photos that were pretty cool. We had one guy in the bathroom, we cleaning bathrooms.
Wait a minute now. He was not using the bathroom.
No, he was cleaning.
He was at work.
Yeah.
And he was. It looked like he worked at possibly a school or something.
Yeah, so he was listening while he was working. We had people doing the dishes in England, people doing the laundry, listening. We had the Carpenter family. They were listening bed, bed, listening to. So back in the day where people used to read bedtime stories. Now we're listening to bedtime podcasts, and Dinner with the King is one of those.
Yes, that's cool.
But there was one photo.
And speaking of the Carpenters, Paula Carpenter came at. I did the World of Customs auto show down in Tupelo, Mississippi this past weekend on Saturday, and Paula came down there and worked with me and helped me. We were actually selling pictures, autographed pictures, and all that sort of stuff. And she worked at my table with me and was a great help. She did awesome. And she said that she told Lauren, and it's funny, Lauren was actually working the show as well, but she was in another booth a little ways away. And what a cool show it was. They had this one part. It was a whole big display of you remember the movie Smokey and the Bandit?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, they had they had Burt Reynolds' car there. They had the big truck that Jerry Reed drove in the movie. They had the sheriff's car. Was it Jackie Gleason? Was he the sheriff?
Ooh. Good question.
Was it? But anyway, they had the sheriff's car, and then they had the big. There was a big Cadillac that had these big bull horns on it. Anyway, that was there. They did. I mean, and I wish I'd have taken my Batmobile down there now, and I probably will do that next year. But it was a really cool. They had over 150 custom cars and trucks there. I mean, it was really fun to walk around and look at. They had the Blues Brothers car from the movie. And then they had a couple of guys that were like the Blues Brothers, and they did a stage show and sang and all of that sort of stuff, and it was really a really cool show.
Yeah, Jackie Gleason was Sheriff Buford T. Justice.
Buford T. Justice, yeah. His car was there, and then they had the police car from the Andy Griffith show there.
Oh wow,
that goes way back. And they had a guy that was dressed up like Barney. He I don't know, he didn't resemble Barney too much except the outfit and of course being with the car, but that was all cool. It was a fun show. Well, made good money. Well, a lot of people wanted to buy a picture of the King down in Tupelo, and I swear every single person that came through the show told me that they were there at the Tupelo concession stand battle.
Everybody.
I mean, every person.
Everybody. 1 million people were at that show, King.
Oh man, I wish. That's what it seemed like since then. Every person from Tupelo or been in and around Tupelo said they were there.
Well, back to our little, back to the photos. King and I, and this is it's me, Johnny O. He posted a photo of where he listened to the podcast and has his workbench, and literally, Johnny, King and I were looking at this photo for about a half an hour before the show, trying to figure out what do you do. So we need to know, what do you do for work, Johnny O?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. This is like it's like his like a workbench or something in front of his work.
I see, Chief Wahoo's. This guy's from Parma, Ohio. It's basically right down the street from where I live in Lakewood. So he has a Chief Wahoo. So he's an Indians fan. So he's with good graces with the podcast. But he's got some spools of wire. Yeah, he has a bag of washers,
some masking tape. A bag of washers. I can't figure. Can you figure out what those little square things are?
No, they seem to be templates for something. I see like
A
little
lot of wire cutters. A lot of wire cutters
little,
there.
yeah,
There's an
well,
X-Acto knife.
I want to say that he has these little, like I see little gears or little circle things in a cup that maybe go into the template for the square template to put some wire through. I don't know, but
Yeah, we just need him to send us and tell us what exactly it is that he's making or working on.
so it's me, Johnny O, O'Brien John 83 on Twitter. A little shout out to you. Let us know when you listen to the podcast. I'm sure you'll listen very quickly, and he'll be very surprised to hear his name on the podcast. But let us know what you do exactly for work, and yeah, let us know. But yeah, if you are listening to the podcast, as we're not doing this end of the show, take a photo of where you're at right now, right this second, if you're not driving, and shoot us a tweet at Dinner with King and at Jerry Lawler at Glenn Moore Sealy. Tag us and let us know we're listening to the podcast. We're always curious all over the world where people are listening. We have people in, I think, the Philippines. We have people in England. They're all over the world listening to the podcast.
Yep, it's amazing.
So this
I really am still. I'm just amazed that many people have that much spare time to just. Well, you know what? I guess when I see some of these tweets, and they're not really listening in their spare time. A lot of them are. They use it as a distraction while you're driving to work, or just while you're doing at work or doing different things. That they just kind of tune in, help pass the time by listening to the podcast, which we love it. Thank you very much. It's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
But it surprises me because I don't necessarily think that you and I are very interesting to just spend that much time hanging out with, Glenn.
Well, they don't listen to me. If they listen to the podcast for me, listen for you, King. I mean, you have 40 plus years in the business. All these people are wrestling fans. They love to hear the stories, and you talk about wrestling. You're still high in demand, King.
Yeah, right.
Come on.
That's like when I wrestle, people start shouting, "You still got it," and then I'll get the microphone and say, "Yeah, I still got it, but seems like nobody wants it anymore."
Aw,
Oh, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
You're always booked. People want you.
I do stay booked a lot. I did, and whenever we start doing the podcast, I put my book over here right on the chair right beside our table, so that I don't get any food on it. But so that I can talk about upcoming events. And oh my gosh, my book is so packed. I got to slow down.
You'll be all right. You're all right, King. You'll be all right.
Hey, I do see you realize next week I'm going to be in Florida. So how are we we're going to have to do one of those podcasts from like on the phone or something.
Well, yeah. We'll you have your microphone. You have the Skype, so we'll be able to do it that way.
Going to Fort Myers again.
All right, so let's jump into the episode of this episode of Dinner with the King. Do you want to talk about the Elimination Chamber at all, or Ronda Rousey putting?
Let me say too a couple of things as I'm looking at this book. Oh yeah, definitely want to talk about Ronda Rousey here.
Yeah.
But we have the big Farm and Gin show coming up here in Memphis, Tennessee, and farmers from all over the country pour into Memphis. It's down at the Cook Convention Center, and it is going to be on Saturday. Well, actually, I think it's Friday and Saturday and Sunday, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th of March. And my business partner, Barry Aycock, he has a company called Ag Explorer, and he always has a booth there, and people come up from all over to see his product. And I'm usually there. I'm definitely going to be there on the 3rd, on Saturday the 3rd. So if you're coming to that big Farm and Gin show, come on out, check me out. I'll be there with my buddy Barry at the Ag Explorer booth, and we always have a good time there. And Barry spares no expense, man. He always has some cool stuff for the people. They always have giveaways and all kind of cool things. So you got to come by the Ag Explorer booth on Saturday, the 3rd of March. Then on Sunday, that's when I'm heading to Florida. Then I get back on Friday morning on the 9th, and we have our big annual show up in Tennessee. It's for the Carl Perkins. It's actually a children's hospital and that sort of thing that they have there in Jackson, Tennessee, but it benefits the Carl Perkins Center. And so we do that every year. That's where I guess it's been a year now. That's where I got my shoulder jacked up. Ooh. So we got a 1-year anniversary of that, my separated shoulder. I don't want to repeat that action up there. And then the next day on the 10th, I'm wrestling in South Fulton, Kentucky, against that dreaded Moondog again. Mm. This guy liked it down here, so he's going to be coming back a lot, I think. And then, of course, the 11th is the 11th is the grand opening.
Yeah, there you go. So King stays busy. So people will still want to see you and watch the King.
Oh yeah, I mean every weekend. Then the 17th, I'm in Dyersburg at the Comic Con. Then wrestling that night, Dyersburg, Tennessee. Then on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, L.A. Comic Con, Los Angeles Comic Con.
Hey, you have any dates with Days of the Dead convention yet at all in the future?
What do you mean Days of the Dead? I mean, there's at the Comic Cons and the different cons. Now I've done an actual horror con where that's
Days of the Dead.
stuff.
That's the Comic Con you did. They have one in Charlotte coming up, Indianapolis, Louisville, Chicago. So I'm not.
Yeah, I'll probably do. I did the Louisville last year. I'll probably do Louisville again. Do you see the date for the Louisville?
For Louisville, no. It says TBA.
Okay, yeah. I did that last year. Those were a lot of fun. That's where I saw you. We got the fun time with Gary Busey. Remember that?
You also saw Captain Spaulding.
Captain Spaulding gave me the finger.
Gave me the finger. All right, so we have a special episode before we get into that, but I want to do.
When Captain Spaulding gives you a finger, he really gives you a finger. It's like a severed finger that's from one of his movies. He's weird.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
We're going to do a Do You Remember? And this is basically people send in tweets of maybe people or angles or different events of your past King of your wrestling career. So, for example,
I'm always leery of these Do You Remember shows because you know very well, Glenn, I don't remember a lot.
I know, but we always
sometimes I don't. Sometimes that's convenient memory, and sometimes I just really don't remember stuff. So you know what? It's so funny. People talk about concussions. I saw Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns doing an interview talking about concussions, and he was saying he doesn't remember a lot of things, and he blamed it on concussions. I can honestly say I've been in this business 47 years, and I don't think I've ever had a concussion.
No, I'm sure you've had one in the past.
I don't remember it.
Well, you don't remember if you had a concussion or not. It's diagnosed by a third party.
Yeah, but I know. But a concussion is, I think when you get a concussion, it's something that you would remember because it affects you for several days.
Well, you don't remember a lot, so maybe that could helps. It not only days, but for years.
Well, yeah, that's why I say I don't think I've ever had a concussion.
I'm sure someone, Joe LaDuke or someone, knocked you over the head back in the day, and you.
Oh my gosh! I used to get hit over the head with metal chairs on almost a nightly basis.
I would bet that you've had your share of concussions back in the day when they weren't really you guys didn't really worry about those kind of things.
Yeah, yeah. They just you didn't even call. Maybe you had them, but you didn't call them a concussion. That's like I remember the day. I think Alzheimer's has been around forever, but it just all of a sudden got a name. And used to, at least I can remember my grandmother, and she obviously, now that I remember back, she obviously had Alzheimer's, but it didn't even have a name then. They called it. You just said, "Oh, they're senile." When a person got old, they got senile when they couldn't remember anything and that sort of stuff. But now, of course, it's called Alzheimer's. And I think maybe same thing with concussions. They just didn't call it that technical term of a concussion. They might just say, man, he got knocked goofy.
Well, we're going to try
But I still say I never had a concussion.
We're going to try
I just can't remember stuff because I've been around a long time. And, I honestly look at it like this. I really do believe that your brain, and especially your memory part of your brain, is like it's like I don't think there's an infinite amount of stuff that can be stored in a person's brain. I don't think it can just go on forever. I think your brain is sort of like a cup or a glass or something that when it gets full, if you keep pouring water in a cup when it's full, some water pours out over the edges. And I just think that the longer you're around and the more stuff you experience and the more stuff you do, some of the, for that stuff to be stored in your brain, I think some of the older stuff, longer way, gets kind of pushed out. And that's what you just can't remember that stuff. It's tougher to remember it. It may still be in there somewhere and you could sit down and think about it for a long time and finally remember stuff. Like the name of that girl we were talking about earlier that we're going to talk about here. I couldn't remember her real name for a little bit, but then finally it came to me.
And some of the things that you don't remember, you just push out yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Jerry Lawler, scientist, Dr. Jerry Lawler, here on Dinner with the King.
The scientist.
The scientist.
The evil scientist.
But we have
I'd be one of those scientists trying to, like on the Three Stooges, where they tried to put Curly's brain into a gorilla. And I think they wound up putting the gorilla's brain into Curly or something like that. I don't know.
Well, like I said, we have a bunch of Do You Remember tidbits here to talk about on the show. But before
let's do it. Let's start talking about them.
Well, before we get into
waffle
that,
fries are getting cold.
Well, you can chow down while I introduce these questions to you. We want to know about Ronda Rousey, and she put Triple H through a table in Elimination Chamber. She got smacked by Stephanie. And then on Raw on Monday night, Triple H clocked Kurt Angle. So it's looking like it's going to be set up Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie at WrestleMania. I think that's what they're trying to do here.
And how huge will that be? Oh, my gosh.
Well, we talked about it before. I think The Rock would have been no offense to Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's great. But The Rock has that, that movie star quality, and he has a large following.
And of course, the first time Ronda was in a WWE ring, basically, it was with The Rock and that little thing that happened with them and Stephanie. And of course, The Rock would be good. But good grief. I mean, Kurt Angle, he's, as far as wrestling credentials, Kurt's, the Olympic gold medal and everything. And you haven't got to see Kurt a lot since he's, in the ring in the WWE. So that part of it's going to be special. And then, Ronda's first, if I'm sure they'll wait, and I'm sure hopefully that will be her first. I don't know. Do you think that they may test her out and give her some matches before WrestleMania?
No, I think they'll wait till make it her debut at WrestleMania and make it a huge deal so they get that, the total amount of people buying the network.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be very smart. But anyway, I can't wait to see it. I mean, nobody. First of all, how impressive was that for her to that move? I mean, it was almost not a side suplex, but almost it looked like it was going to be a Brock Lesnar type suplex, but then she turned and put Triple H right through the table. That was, I mean, even to me, who's been around as long as I have and seen it all, that was impressive. I really thought that was a great way to showcase Ronda, her first move in the WWE.
Here's a question I wanted to ask you about this, because you've dealt with bringing guys, and ladies from outside the wrestling business into and working with them who have notoriety, who made it on their own outside of wrestling. Andy Kaufman obviously is a huge example of a guy that came into Memphis, was instantly with matches with you, drawing huge crowds. But do you think there's ever jealousy of maybe other female wrestlers that are maybe upset with Ronda coming in, who hasn't wrestled a match but has UFC experience, and she's getting the main a main event WrestleMania push, it looks like, right off the bat? Or do you think, hey, you have this lady coming in and you have a lot of eyes watching the product, that's good for everybody?
I'm certain that what will be presented to the public is the fact that everybody is excited about Ronda being there, all the female wrestlers and that sort of thing. But it's just a human nature fact of life and that's one of the things that it really makes this business what it is. I mean, one of the biggest things is professional jealousy. I mean, I think I've said this before, but every single man or woman that puts on a pair of tights or wrestling boots and climbs into a WWE ring thinks in their mind, and you have to have this kind of confidence, you have to have this kind of belief in yourself, but every person thinks in their mind, if I were given the opportunity by the WWE, by the creative, by Vince McMahon, if I were put in the main event every night, I would draw record crowds. It would be sellout after sellout, and that's just I guarantee you that's what every single person in the WWE, that's their mindset, and there's nothing wrong with that. You have to believe in yourself like that, and so when you see that's not happening, there's a part of your mind that just says, why can't they see that I would be better in that spot than for instance, a Ronda Rousey or something. And you really have to have that's where the business sense of being in this business has to come in, and it has to overcome that personal feeling of I don't know if it's that you're jealous of that single person. You'd almost be like you're jealous of anybody, any other competitor that gets used or featured more than you do. So that's where the business sense has to come in, where you have to think, hey, they're doing what's best for business, and I have to, I accept the fact that these people got where they are by doing the right thing and by being smarter than probably 100% of the wrestlers that wrestle for them. And so, you just have to accept that fact. But certainly, I think it's there in almost every competitor that they feel like if they were given that shot, that same opportunity, that they would be a bigger star than the person that they're pushing or putting in that spot.
And it's not like Ronda, hasn't put in her due for UFC. I mean, she's an Olympic gold medalist in her own right. Obviously she's dominated UFC for years, so it's not like she's coming off the bench and just being thrust into wrestling. Not just that. Ronda is,
wrestling is forever. It's been around forever, and it planned on being around forever. So that's another part of the business end of wrestling is you take advantage in wrestling. You have to keep trying to come up with something new and exciting, because you're on every week. I mean, how many hours a week of wrestling does the WWE produce? Tons. So they have to keep trying to come up with something new, something exciting, something topical, and so that's what you always, that's what you always look for. And Ronda Rousey is, she's topical. She's been in the news in the UFC for a long time now, and has maintained that level of stardom. And so now for the WWE to get a chance to cash in on that, it's just a natural. You have to. You put other things on hold that once you get a hold of it. I mean, that's what happened with Andy Kaufman. Sure, there were guys in Memphis that were thinking, how are they putting a guy that's not even a wrestler, a guy that can't wrestle, how are they putting him in the main event of these shows? I'm sure they were thinking that was not a smart move. But Andy Kaufman was topical. Andy Kaufman was on the #1 watched show on television, Taxi, at the time. He had a hit TV sitcom, and he brought that extra attention. He brought in extra fans, the fringe fans, the fans that weren't just wrestling fans were interested in this, because all of a sudden it wasn't just wrestling. And that's the other thing with Ronda Rousey. She's going to bring fans that aren't ordinarily WWE fans to the table and to the network, and so it's just, it's just a smart business move, but that's not going to stop other people from being envious of that. Yeah,
and I think the other aspect is having all these female fans of Ronda who follow whatever she does. Now will watch WWE in turn,
of course,
and maybe become fans of a Charlotte or a Sasha Banks or a Bayley. Right. So I think, there's a little bit of jealousy, because everybody wants the top spot. Everybody wants to get the most amount of money they can, because that's what wrestling is about, making money. I think it'll drive the women's division roster to improve, step up their game, to step up to Ronda in the future. And I think there could be jealousy, but I think if you ask anybody on the women's roster, hey, would you want a match with Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania?
Oh my gosh, of course.
They would love to. They would love that paycheck.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So. And once again, let me reiterate, that feeling of confidence and that feeling of wanting to be the biggest star in the company. That's what you have to make it in the WWE. You have to have that belief in yourself that you can be the biggest star that the WWE has ever had, or you won't make it. Trust me. I mean, you really have to feel that way. And so it's a healthy thing, but that little bit of envy is just part of human nature. We all feel that.
Was there ever a time, King, for yourself that you were jealous over another wrestler?
I'm well, yeah. I'm sure that I used to think, especially when I don't know, when I first came to the WWE in '93 and '94 and all that. I got what they call the big push. I mean, they put me against, they put me right in there against some of the top guys. Bret the Hitman Hart. I mean, he was the top guy in the WWE. And then I had
Jake the Snake.
Jake the Snake, Roddy Piper, Ultimate Warrior. So I got my shot at doing a lot of that stuff. And then I got to admit, when I got moved into commentary, I did still feel like, man, this is like a waste putting me on commentary when I felt like I could be more valuable still, wrestling in the ring. So yeah, there were those feelings at that time.
Well, hopefully you're not jealous of anybody anymore, King.
Well, I get jealous of you every now and then when you get to eat free here all the time.
It's your restaurant. All right.
I know. Sometimes I even have to pay here at my own place.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm sure.
Business,
Yeah, can't earn by giving away free sandwiches, King.
Right.
But I appreciate the gesture.
Okay.
All right, let's
trying to get you that Hall of Fame.
Let's get into the meat of the show, and this is Do You Remember? And we have a few questions about old Memphis, and we're going to tie this into the podcast. So I know the King, you don't really remember. You remember a lot. I give you credit.
Can I say, before we're still talking about my memory, and the one thing that I do remember about Raw Monday night, and man, if she got this down, it didn't take long, but with the Ronda Rousey with that stare.
Yeah.
That death stare, you called it. I don't know if anybody does it as well as Ronda Rousey. Even no matter how long you've been doing it, that stare will send chills up and down your back. It just made me just think, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see her get her hands on Stephanie.
Ever tell you a story about taking 2 chops from Ronda Rousey?
What?
I told you the story. Remember I took 2 chops from Ronda Rousey?
Well, see, I can't even remember that.
Yeah, no,
we're in trouble today on today's show.
That was a few weeks ago. But
what were you doing? You were interviewing her for something, right?
No, she was up in Cleveland for the AIW, the local Cleveland wrestling promotion. Her friend Shayna Baszler, who was a NXT wrestler now, she was wrestling in a match in the indie scene, and Ronda was in town for UFC in Cleveland, and she came and hung out with us backstage and had an altercation with Ronda Rousey.
What did you do? Did you just walk up and say, "Hey, Ronda, would you give me a chop?"
There was a rapport established before. We talked and we drank and she took a lot of photos of people, and I think we were in the gorilla position, and she was about to go out for like a split second to celebrate with her friend, and I was like, I could take one of your chops.
What were you doing in the gorilla position?
I was always backstage with AIW. I did some commentary for AIW. I would just hang out. And
so you got the idea. Yeah, I think we did talk about this because I told you about doing the radio show with Danny Bonaducci, where he's all of a sudden out of the blue asked me, would I slap him like I slapped Andy Kaufman? And so all of a sudden you asked Ronda Rousey, would you give me one of those?
No,
chops?
I said more like I said more of a threatening nature. I'm like, I bet you I could take one of your chops. She goes, oh really? And then she goes, I'm not going to hurt you. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to hurt you. I'm like, and I got right in her face, and I said, you will chop me.
Really?
And then she gave me the death stare. and she gave me a chop.
What if she just punched you right in the teeth and knocked you out?
No, she's a sweet girl. But no, she gave me a chop, and I knew she held back. And I got right in her face. I'm like, you better give me your hardest chop. And she wound up Ric Flair style and gave me the chop of my life, and it felt like a tree fell on my chest.
Really?
And it bruised. I was bruised for a few days afterwards, and she wanted to see.
You might want to get in touch with Stephanie and tell her what she just got in store for her, what to expect. I don't know if Stephanie's ever been chopped where it's going to feel like a tree fell on her chest.
And then later in the evening, Rhonda wanted to see the marks on my chest because she obviously there was by a big handprint, So I took my shirt off right in front of Ronda Rousey. And she she checked me out.
Oh, really?
She said, "Rock that beautiful body."
Oh my God! Really?
Swear on my life. Yeah. So that's my. I know I told the story before. People are like, "Oh, Glenn, stop bragging," but no, Ronda Rousey, she's great. She can do no wrong in my book.
Yeah, she told me after that. She said, "Glenn is like a library book." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I'm always checking him out."
Yeah.
Oh God!
Well, no,
that's a bad joke that I used to use on the Divas.
She's happily married.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she's married to a fellow, well, not a fellow, but a UFC
Another
fighter, Travis Brown. Yeah, she's madly in love. She wants his babies.
Ooh.
So I have no chance. But I did get to tell her that she's my celebrity crush. So, and she is.
Well, that's good. She's going to be a lot of people's celebrity crush there once she's established in the WWE. All right, Glenn, it's time for me to take a minute and talk about something new. It's of course it's one of our sponsors, but it's this thing that I'm about to talk about it could become revolutionary. Let me ask you this, Glenn. Do you have any problem, or has anybody ever told you that you have a problem snoring?
Yeah, yes. People have told me I snore a lot.
I know, because you stayed here at my house one time, and I could hear you from the other room. I could hear you in the guest room down in Lauren and I's bedroom.
What?
So,
no.
Yeah, yes, I'm serious. You snore a lot. Now, I never believed that I snore, but Lauren says I do, and so our new sponsor. And you know, when we have a sponsor, I have to try this stuff out. I have to believe in this, or I'm not going to talk about it. It's our new sponsor is called Z Quiet, and Z Quiet, it's like this revolutionary anti-snoring product, and it was created out of one of the just like mine, a family's need for peace and quiet. There's this couple, Dan and Trina Webster. I mean, apparently they were just desperate for a solution for Dan's snoring, and so they went to work on this, and they came up with this product called Z Quiet, and it's a simple solution, and it's snoring. Of course, there's a problem that's shared by millions of Americans, and the Z Quiet, I was skeptical when I got it, because, well, first of all, you know, when you snore, you don't know if you snore or not, so you have to take somebody else's word for it when you're asleep, whether or not you snore anymore. And so this Z Quiet, first let me explain what it is. It's made in the United States. It's a mouthpiece that uses soft, BPA-free material. It's comfortable. It's a comfortable, easy to use mouthpiece, and it's been helping people cut down or stop their snoring for the past 10 years. And the instructions on it say you just pop it in when you go to bed, and it works immediately. And so that's what I did. I tried this thing. And I mean, I got to be honest with you. First, when I looked at it, I thought, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wear this at night. And I don't know if I'll be able to go to sleep with a mouthpiece in. But it was so comfortable. As soon as I put it in, didn't even realize it was there. And, you could talk with it in. You could. I haven't tried this yet, but it says you could even drink while wearing Z Quiet. But it works. At least Lauren says it worked for me. The simple principle is that the little mouthpiece moves your lower jaw slightly forward, and it opens the airway, and it prevents vibrations that cause the snoring noise. So they have this deal where you can try it. If you have a problem with snoring, you can try Z Quiet with confidence. They have a 30-night better sleep guarantee. And so if it doesn't work for you, Z Quiet will give you your money back. And so here's what I'm telling you to do. If you have a problem with snoring, it's time to kick snoring out of the bed. You can sleep quiet with Z Quiet. And right now, Z Quiet is offering an exclusive $15 discount just for my listeners only. And the way you get that is you go to buyzquiet.com. That's BUYZQUIET.com. And enter the promo code KING, K-I-N-G. You have to put that in there. And again, that's buyzquiet.com, and enter the promo code KING. You get $15 off you get a $15 discount off of Z Quiet. And I can tell you from experience, Lauren can tell you from experience. I didn't know. I woke up and I asked her, did you hear me snore last night? And she said no. So, trust me, she complains a lot when I snore, when I don't even realize I snore. And I think I honestly have you ever woken yourself up snoring so loud?
All the time, yes.
Yeah, well, I had done that a few times, but then I still would deny that I was actually snoring. But that hasn't happened since I've been trying Z Quiet. So there's your deal. Go to buyzquiet.com, check it out. You get a $15 discount by adding the promo code KING. And if you got a problem snoring, it's time to kick that problem out of bed.
All right, let's get into this. Come on, do remember, we got to... I hate.
Are we almost through yet?
No, we haven't even started the meat of the show. Here we go.
What?
Here's the first. Do you remember? We'll do a few of these. Do you remember your feud with Randy Hales in Power Pro Wrestling? Good old Randy Hales.
Man, we just did it. We just did my my TV show. The last show was with Randy Hales. It just aired this past Sunday at noon, and that was. We went through a lot of that stuff with Randy Hales, and we had, of course, Randy on as a guest. And of course, everybody realizes probably Randy now, who has been around the wrestling business since he was 10 years old. He actually tweeted out a picture the other day of himself. The first picture that he, I guess, was kind of, it looks like he's photobombing it. But he used to be the guy that over in Jonesboro, Arkansas, when he was just a little teenager that would go to the ring. Excuse me. My waffle fries trying to make a comeback on me. But anyway, he would go to the ring and like take the wrestlers' jackets or the championship belts back to the back, before, when the match started and everything. So, and now he's gone from that to being in wrestling, to own his own wrestling company, and then and now he's the general manager of the Hall of Fame Bar and Grill down on Beale Street.
He's a great guy.
But we had him on, and he talked all about back in the day, and I told him his company was called Power Pro Wrestling, and Randy's problem was, I think this is what I said to him on the show. I think that power part of it kind of went to your head because I mean his company that he had here in Memphis was responsible for some really monumental moments, and the fact that when Randy was running Power Pro here, that was when the WWE was using Memphis as like their developmental territory, and guys got sent down here. Guys like Kurt Angle, The Rock, of course, different guys that I mean, and then Randy got into the deal where he thought he had so much heat that he wanted to wrestle, and now. If Randy had taken his shirt off in front of Ronda Rousey, I don't know what would happen. But Randy started wrestling, and he wrestled against Brandon Baxter, who is now a radio DJ over in Jonesboro, Arkansas, Randy's home. And they were two very small guys, but all of a sudden they were headlining shows that had guys like Kurt Angle, and Baldo, and Golga the Giant, and all of these big up-and-coming WWE future superstars, and then Randy was the main event on the show. So I gave him a lot of grief about that. But Randy is a great guy. That was a great promotion. That was one of the things that we had on our show this past week was Kurt Angle's very first televised match was right here in Memphis Wrestling, and a lot of those guys for the first time they were on TV was here. And my feud with Randy came about in that thing because I had started in the WWE and was not going to probably be available all the time back here to do the Memphis shows, and so we came up with this idea where Randy was going to replace the King. He came on and did this interview about, I'm the biggest fan ever of the Kings, but times change, and now he's leaving us here in Memphis. He's going on to be the big shot up in New York in the WWE. So we got to have a King here in Memphis. And he brought in, and I still can't remember. I just watched the show this Sunday of this guy on it. This big, I don't think he was the Kurgan, this big giant guy. He's like legit 7 feet tall.
Giant Silva?
Giant Silva, that was him. It was Giant Silva. So he brought him in as the new Giant King for Memphis, and that wound up me, fighting this giant Silva and Randy and being involved. And yeah, that was a lot of fun, the stuff there with Randy Hales.
Do you remember Kevin Christian and the Yellow Jacket?
Yeah, it's funny because Kevin Christian, of course, is my son, Kevin Lawler, and yeah, he had this little wrestling outfit that it was actually padded. You see some of these guys that have a padded suit. I don't know where he got it made, but it actually had some bigger shoulder pads in it and even some bicep pads in it and everything. So he had this suit, called himself the Yellow Jacket, and he was actually Kurt Angle's first opponent in the wrestling match there in Memphis on his first televised match. Kurt wrestled my son Kevin. The match lasted, I think, a total of, from start to finish, 7 seconds.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was funny. I don't know what Kevin did something to Kurt, maybe an arm drag or something right off the bat, and then he turned around to gloat, and then when he turned back around, Kurt gave him this massive suplex and then covered him immediately, and so it was like over in just a matter of seconds. But that's pretty cool for my son Kevin to have the honor of saying, I had Kurt Angle's very first televised match.
One thing that stuck out with the program with you and Randy and the cat Stacy, there was a time where I think Stacy slapped Randy, and the next week Randy told her to stay home, and you came out and Randy's running his mouth because he's like the heel authority figure, and you come out and you were like, you said, I know Stacy's not here, but she told me to tell you something, and Randy goes, what? And you just slapped the taste out of his.
Yeah. But
that was a program that he was setting up to have Kane, Glenn Jacobs, wrestle you at the Mid-South Coliseum, and Kane was he just defeated The Undertaker a couple weeks before that, so you had Kane, a WWF superstar, coming down the Power Pro to wrestle you in the Mid-South Coliseum. How about that?
Yeah, that was pretty cool, man. And then one of the fun things about that program that that really worked into something. There was this guy, Sean Stasiak. You remember Sean Stasiak?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, well, Sean was down there working for us as well, and as part of the WWE developmental deal, and so we did this deal where, of course, Stacy was with me and all that sort of stuff, and then so it was like Sean stole her away from me, or maybe he won her in a match or something like that. But anyway, all of a sudden she had to be with Sean's valet for a certain length of time, and it was so great. We came up with this idea where we had Sean say that he was so proud of Stacy, but he wanted to introduce her to his family. He wanted to introduce her to his mother. It was like bringing home your future wife or something like that to meet your mother, right? And so who do you think we brought in as Sean Stasiak's mother to introduce her to Stacy? You have any idea?
No.
Mae Young.
Oh.
It was so great. So all of a sudden, Mae Young comes out, this crotchety old woman, right? She got this little handbag and everything, and she's Sean Stasiak's mother. And so Sean says, "Well, Mom, here she is. What do you think?" And Mae Young looks Stacy up and down, and she says, "She looks like trailer park trash to me." And then the two of them, of course, got into it. And Stacy winds up throwing Mae Young up into the ring, and that led to some matches. And oh my gosh, it was so great. And then Sean brought down his sister to be involved in this. He brought down his sister, who was Terry Filippetti. And Terry Filippetti was she just worked in the WWE behind the scenes. She was a producer, and I talked her into coming down and being on the show. We had all kind of WWE interplay. I remember one night we were going over to do a show in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and we were taking we had picked up Mae Young at the airport, and she was going to wrestle Stacy in Jonesboro. So we picked her up at the airport, and we're driving over to Jonesboro, and we're about to cross the Mississippi River into Arkansas, and we're passing the Peabody Hotel. And Mae Young, this was so great. Mae Young looked and she said, "You know what? I was staying at the Peabody Hotel the night World War II broke out."
Oh
I said,
my!
"What?" And she said, "Yep, that's where I was when that happened." Now, what year would that have been? Was this like 42 or something? 41 or 42? Yeah. So, and there she was. This was in like the 1990s, and she's still heading across the river to wrestle Stacy in a match over in Jonesboro.
Talk about a trooper from Mae Young. Taking bumps, even at her age in the WWF.
She was the best. I mean, remember the deal of where the Dudleys pushed her off the stage in a wheelchair?
And then they did a power bomb.
She had to be like 80 years old.
Yeah, then they did a power bomb through a table off the stage.
Yes.
Jeez.
She was unbelievable. And like you said, what a trooper. Her and I mean, two of my all-time favorite people to work with. Of course, I knew the fabulous Moolah from all the way back in the 70s when I first started in the business. I would have to go to Nashville once a week and stay in this old Sam Davis hotel that's been long since torn down now, but that's where the wrestling office was for Nashville. And Nick Goulas and Roy Welch, who owned the territory and they were the promoters, they had their office in the Sam Davis Hotel. And I was like a young kid. That was my first trips away from home, staying overnight in Nashville, at the office when I'd go up there to work. And so I immediately realized, and I started, I would have to go up there once a week, every week. So I immediately asked for the top floor and a corner room on the top floor. And so, and the reason I asked for that was, it was like maybe a 10-story hotel at the best, maybe 7 stories, something like that. But anyway, I mean, and I don't think these rooms were even air conditioned. But they had these old windows that you could just pull open, and I'd get up there and I'd open the window and I'd look straight down from my room would be the parking lot where the wrestlers would pull up and park to go into the wrestling office. And so the high point of my week was checking into that room, watching out that window with a metal trash can full of water, and whenever a wrestler would park, I had it timed perfectly. I would dump a whole trash can full of water down 7 stories onto their head, right? And then, of course, get back in where they could never tell who did it. And I did that for weeks. But one time, there, who was the wrestler? Man, I'll never remember her name now, but she was kind of just getting started. And Moolah and Nick Goulas were friends, and Nick would call Moolah like once a month, and he would have Moolah send in a couple of girls to be on the card, and they would work the territory for like a week. They'd go around, they'd make Memphis and Louisville and Nashville and Evansville and all of these towns once a week. And then they'd go back over to Moolah's territory or Moolah's headquarters over in the Carolinas. Well, this one finally got me. I think the word had gotten out that I was the guy that was dumping the water on people's head. And so all of a sudden a taxi pulls up in front of the Sam Davis, and out steps this young girl wrestler. And she had one of those old suitcases that were, I mean, back in the day, you could get, the suitcases were almost made out of cardboard, and they just had a little plastic handle on them. Well, I saw her getting out of the taxi and starting to come in, and I fired down that big bucket of water, and it landed perfectly right on her head. It hit her so hard, of course, it just flattened her hairdo right out, and it knocked her. She still had the suitcase handle in her hand, but it knocked the suitcase right off the handle. Right, that's how hard the water hit her, and of course she went screaming and crying into the office, and then Moolah demanded to Nick Goulas that whoever did that be fired. Oh, and so of course that was me, and so that was my first firing that I got from Nick Goulas, but it only lasted about a week. Once the girl left the territory, they hired me back. But man, Moolah and I go way back, and Moolah and Mae Young, when they were in the WWE together, they were the most incredible source of one-liners and material for me. I just had so much fun, and they were so great on working with it. Talking about their age and everything didn't bother them a bit. I said, just every kind of age joke with Moolah and Mae Young that could ever happen, and they were just tremendous for me, at least. They just worked so well with all of that.
Even saw Mae Young's puppies at the Royal Rumble. I think
Oh
99
my goodness!
in the
Wow.
the bikini contest. I think at the Rumble.
What's amazing about that, a lot of people don't realize the reason they were able to do that, because that was a prosthesis, I think you call it.
Okay.
Those were like made by a makeup artist, and it was not really her, although it looked very real. It looked like a Tom Savini job. They made these. I don't know if they were made out of foam rubber or whatever, but anyway, these sagging breast, and when she took her top off, of course it was a shocking sight. But like I said, that wasn't really Mae, so that's the way they were able to get to do that.
All right, let's move right along to the second.
Moving right along.
Do you remember tidbit here? And we'll do one more after this one. But here is one. You can kind of settle the score because this one's out for debate. But do you remember if Jerry Jarrett was going to run the WWF if Vince McMahon would have went to prison for his steroid trial back, over 20 years ago?
Yes, I do remember that, and that was actually the plan. That's why Jerry Jarrett was brought, from Memphis or from Nashville to the WWE, just in case that happened as a fail-safe plan. Jerry was going to be the guy that would be the main guy to run things, and that simply because I think Vince looked around and saw that, Jerry was like, Jerry was like the last man standing. He was the only guy that was running a business that had survived, that had survived the onslaught of cable TV and the onslaught of the WWE. We still had our Memphis Wrestling company that had been run for over 20 years. And I think Vince thought, hey, if this guy is able to run that business and keep it afloat against all odds, that he would be a good guy that we could trust to run the WWE. And while Vince was away, if that happened, and there was a distinct possibility of that happening at that time. But Vince was so great. I mean, I think he always had the supreme confidence that that he was going to beat. I mean, this was one of those cases where it was Vince single-handedly taking on the government, and you know how Vince McMahon is. He's like a Donald Trump guy. He believes that he can take on anybody or anything, and he did. He took on the government and he won. But there was that distinct possibility that he might not win, and a lot of people thought he wouldn't win. And if that was the case, Vince might have had to go away for a while, and that's why Jerry Jarrett was brought in. But one of the funny things I'll never forget, during that trial, Vince and I were doing the commentary at the time, and we did a Halloween show, and so Vince came on the air dressed as a convict in a complete black and white striped outfit. He's dressed as a convict, and of course I was dressed as a gynecologist, and so it was a crazy thing. But that's how confident Vince was on that thing. But just in case it had not have gone right, that's what the plan was for Jerry to do.
But really, I mean, even if Vince went to prison, that's his baby. I'm sure Vince would have still been the final say, even if he was still in prison. Anything going on in WWF at the time, I'm sure still would have had to be run past Vince, right?
Well, I would imagine so. Yeah. Probably so. But this was at a time. This was so many years ago that Stephanie and Shane were still kids.
Yeah.
They were certainly in no position to take over and run anything, and I don't even know if Triple H was even in the business yet then. So he was looking for somebody that had a track record of keeping a wrestling company going. And that's all he was interested in if he did go away, is for somebody to come in, step in, and fill his shoes and keep the company going until he got back in charge.
Well, there you go. It's just been a long debate.
At least that's what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a long debate, and a lot of people say that wasn't the case. A lot of people say that was the case. So it's been a debate, and I think people should trust your answer because you worked with Jerry Jarrett for so many years. I think you were in the WWF at the time, and you were good friends with Jerry Jarrett. So there's really no reason for you to make anything up like that.
Yeah, no, but I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I was never in a meeting with like Vince and Jerry, and that was where that was spelled out. That was just, basically kind of what I heard on our end down here.
All right, final. Do you remember? This is this will be a new kind of little segment for the show because there's a lot of different. This not only can you remember this, King, but can lead to a bunch of stories. Like who would have thought the Fabulous Moolah would have been a story on the podcast this week? So it can lead down a whole different avenue of stories. But here's one that I've been researching myself over the past week, and of course you remember who it is. But do you remember Tojo Yamamoto?
Oh, are you kidding? Of course I remember Tojo Yamamoto. As a matter of fact, just I think last week may have been the anniversary of Tojo taking his own life. I mean, and when I saw it, it's been over like 25 years ago or something like that. And it doesn't, Tojo was such a big, impressive figure in my career that when I think about it that long, it just doesn't seem like it's been that long. But yeah, Tojo Yamamoto was, oh God, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, so many different things happened with Tojo that affected my career. For instance, just starting off from the get-go, it was a picture of Tojo Yamamoto and Jackie Fargo. I'll never forget this. That was the picture that I drew, a picture of Tojo and a picture of Jackie wrestling each other, that I sent to Lance Russell and to the TV station that got me noticed. And that, Lance took that picture of Tojo and Jackie, showed it on TV, and then called me afterwards and had me come over to meet those guys and actually be on the wrestling show. And that's where I got my foot in the door and how my career got started. Drawing a picture of Tojo and got it started. Then my first match that I had for Nick Goulas's promotion was against Tojo Yamamoto. And I think one of the things about Tojo that I can remember was Nick Goulas, the promoter at the time, he would put guys against Tojo Yamamoto, guys that were just starting out and thought they wanted to be wrestlers, and Nick would put them against, or Jerry as well, would put them against Tojo Yamamoto. And after a match with Tojo, if you came back and said you still wanted to do it again, then they knew you had some potential. They knew you had the staying power, that you really wanted to do it. Because Tojo, even though later on I found out that this was not always the case, but he gave the impression, especially to young guys just trying to start out, he would dissuade you. He would change your mind about wanting to be a wrestler after one match with Tojo. He would chop you so hard. He would abuse you so bad in that ring that, and which turned out to be a good thing. It's exactly what you needed, like basic training at boot camp. If you join the service or something like that, going through matches with Tojo would prove whether or not you really wanted to be in this business. And I got booked against Tojo not just once, but like every single week on a Saturday night in Jonesboro, Arkansas, for like I think maybe 6 weeks. So much so that finally Jackie, I mean he would beat me up so bad that finally Jackie went to Tojo and said, hey Tojo, come on, lighten up on this kid. I like him. He's a friend of mine, and take care of him. Don't just lay off a little bit. And I was so thankful for Jackie doing that. But the cool thing was, no matter how bad Tojo chopped me up and beat me up and everything, I just, I kept coming back and saying, yeah, please continue to book me. So that part of Tojo was great, and he was just not a big guy at all, very short. He wore these like 7 or 8 inch tall wooden shoes that he would wear out to the ring just to make him look taller and everything. But he's a short, squatty guy that portrayed. I mean, if you remember, this was back in the day when everybody was stereotyped. Any kind of foreigner was immediately a bad guy. We were against Germans, we were against Japanese in the war. So if you guy took on one of those personas, he was immediately the villain. So Tojo, in reality, was a Hawaiian. He wasn't even really Japanese. He was a Hawaiian, and I think his real name. This was sad, but I mean, he was very guarded vehemently against his name getting out because it would just kill his gimmick. His real name was Larry.
Well, I think it was Harold.
Well, no, Harold. Yeah. Harold what?
Harold Wantabe. Harold Watanabe.
What? Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Wanabe or something.
Yeah,
like
but
that. Yeah.
It says he was Harold.
Man, I always thought it was Larry Wanabe.
Yeah, I've researching for
maybe
this.
Maybe it was
topic.
Harold. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Well, because
But anyway, yeah. What I was saying though, it was just a very common American name that he would guard that with his life, and he would fight anybody that tried to tell anybody that his name wasn't Tojo. And of course, you remember Tojo was the name of the Japanese emperor when we were at war with him. So he took that name, and then I think there was another one. Yamamoto was the name of another famous. He combined these two names of these famous Japanese villains and made a great career out of that. But Tojo he came here. He had no family, no relatives here, no children, never married. And I take that back. He may.
Well, he said that he was divorced twice, but no kids.
Yeah, he did. He had a couple of marriages, very short-lived, both of them. And as a matter of fact, I remember one of the girls, a redheaded girl, that he was married to for a very short time. But he was a kind of a loner, and it was tough getting inside and getting on the inside of Tojo and becoming his friend and everything. Jackie Fargo did. Of course, Jerry Jarrett became very, very close with him. And I like to think that I did close enough that I could be able to pull some. I pulled some great ribs. Tojo was a great guy to rib because the way he would react. I once threw a rubber snake over on near him in Jackson, Tennessee, at the Oman Arena. He was dressing between these two sets of lockers by himself, and I snuck in behind the one set, and I kind of got up on the top of the lockers and saw where he was, and I threw this big rubber snake down on Tojo. He was deathly afraid of snakes, and he screamed and went right in his suitcase and pulled out the longest pistol, this big .357 Magnum that I'd ever seen, and he immediately turned around, and I started running when I saw him pull out this pistol, and Tojo, it was funny. He would not curse. He would, the strongest that he would ever say, he would say, "You son of a gun, son of a gun, you son of a gun." That was his favorite expression. And he came out with that gun. He said, "You son of a gun, I shoot you, you son of a gun, I shoot you." And so he made a believer out of me. But we still, Jackie Fargo would just rip Tojo to death. And Tojo, either he was playing along so well that just putting Jackie over by doing all these things, or Jackie just could really get to him. But he was a great guy once you got to know him. Huge star here. I mean, he didn't look, he didn't really look all that impressive or all that scary or anything, but he just he was sneaky, and he would and of course that was the back in that day with Pearl Harbor and everything, the sneak attack and everything. He played on all of the things that really happened to perfection. And so he was just great. He was over like $1 million, and then the big thing was, all his career, all the time, he had been the big villain, been the big bad guy. And then suddenly, when Jerry Jarrett first started wrestling, Jerry was small, underdog-looking kid, but young, blonde hair, good-looking. All the girls loved him and everything. And so, somewhere they did a thing where Jerry was getting beat up, and all of a sudden, the big main bad guy, Tojo Yamamoto, came to Jerry's rescue. And they formed a team, and he became the man. Then Jerry and Tojo were the top, the baby faces or good guys in the company for a long, long time. And then and poor Tojo, he got sick. I think he had a liver a tumor or something on his liver. He started losing weight, not feeling good at all. He hated to go to doctors. He didn't trust a lot of people. He didn't trust doctors. He didn't trust banks. He always kept all his money he would keep in his car, in the trunk of his car. And one time his car yes, I'm telling you. One time his car got stolen in Birmingham, Alabama, and they were like Tojo's life savings was gone.
Wow.
But he just didn't trust a lot of people. But finally he got so sick that he went to the doctor, and the doctor, did all the tests, and they told him he had a terminal illness that he probably was going to last maybe about 6 months or something. This liver, I'm not sure if it was cancer or what, but anyway, Tojo went home from the doctor and got a gun and shot himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have some clips for you. Here is, speaking of ribs, I found a clip on YouTube, and I think this is on the Jerry Lawler show back in 1984, and you guys are talking about a great rib you had with Jackie Fargo.
We were wrestling in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and Jackie Fargo was on the card, and this is something I don't know if a lot of people realize, but we'd try to have a little fun in the dressing room every day.
Yeah, there's no good Jackie Fargo. One time I go to the ring, and when I come back, I don't know what, I can't say the word, but when I wear my clothes, I jump up and down, everything. I thought somebody, Jackie Fargo put some hot pepper or something, and I drove from Jonesboro to Nashville, Tennessee, jumping up and down like that in my car. So after that, I find out, Jackie Fargo make me so mad, and you the instigator.
Okay, what happened? Jackie Fargo went out to wrestle, and you and Jerry Jarrett took some of this. When you have an injury, they have this atomic bomb that you put on a bruise or something, and you guys put that all in Jackie's, in his underwear and things like that. You did.
Not me, Laura, not me. I know, because it's tough for Jackie Fargo, because he go in the ring, I see him doing all these things. I said, what's the matter, Jackie Fargo? He said, told you, I think you and Jerry Jarrett put something in my tights. I told Mr. Fargo, no. He goes, Jerry Jarrett.
But anyway, when you guys went to the ring, he doctored up your clothes, and you guys had to
he doctored really good, because from Jonesboro to Nashville, everything burned. I stopped maybe 50 times to cool off.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll never forget that night. We were actually, I was wrestling on the first match. And so anyway, I'd ridden over with Jackie from Memphis, and Tojo and Jerry Jarrett had come down from Nashville in Tojo's car. And so I was on the first match. I went out and wrestled, and then Jackie Fargo was on the second match. And then I think Tojo and Jerry Jarrett were on the main event on the third match. So while Jackie was out wrestling, Tojo and Jerry took this, as it was called ice. It was like Icy Hot, but it was called Tiger Balm. And man, this stuff was strong. Anyway, I think this stuff belonged to Tojo, but Tojo was right. It was really mostly Jerry Jarrett trying to pull a rib on Jackie. But anyway, they put that Tiger Balm stuff all in his underwear, under his arms of his shirt, and the back of the legs of his pants, and all of this stuff, and Jackie's clothes. And so they were just laughing and everything. And then when of course, they're like hush hush. Then when Jackie came back, they didn't say anything, and they're all dressed and they're ready to go out to the ring and wrestle. So when the bell rang and they went out to the ring to wrestle, Jackie had just gotten out of the shower and was about to put his clothes on. And of course, I rode with Jackie. I mean, Jackie was my hero, and I was just getting started in the business. So I felt I had to tell Jackie. So I said, Jackie, please wait, hang on. I said, Tojo and Jerry put all of this stuff in your clothes. And so don't put, and he went, oh, really? Okay. And so then he smelled the clothes and everything. And so he put on some different stuff, right? And so then then he grabbed their clothes and he put all that stuff all in their clothes, in their underwear, under their arms, under the back of the legs, and all in all of their clothes. And so then when Tojo and Jerry came back from their match, Jackie acted like he was standing there. He was already dressed, and he was like, combing his hair and everything. And he was standing there, and he starts squirming around like, oh man, I don't know, ooh, oh, and he was acting like this stuff was burning him, right? But he had already put different clothes, right? And man, Jerry, Jarrett, and Tojo were just dying laughing over there. They thought this rib had worked perfect, right? So then Jackie and I left, and Jackie's just squirming around like, oh man, something's burning. What in the world? And so we left the arena, and we left Tojo and Jerry there just laughing, thinking they'd pulled the ultimate rib on Jackie. Then in reality, they put their clothes on, got in the car, and started driving back to Nashville. And it took a little while, but man, they said later that they got, like you heard Tojo, they got set on fire, and they had to stop 50 times. They finally rented a hotel room and went in and tried to get in the bathtubs and stuff in the shower. And Jerry said that just made that stuff burn even more. So yeah, that was just one of the, and you heard Tojo's voice. It's so great to hear him talking. He used to do some great interviews, and yeah, I mean, that guy was just so much fun. I miss him so bad.
There's one promo that sticks out in my mind just from reading about him. I don't think there's any YouTube footage of this one, but he was in Boaz, Alabama. Is that how I'm saying it right?
Yeah, Boaz, Alabama. Yeah.
So this is just after Pearl Harbor, and he goes in broken English, "I make apology. Very, very sorry. My country bombed Pearl Harbor." And the crowd got quiet, and he wiped away his tears, and they all went on because obviously he's a big heel. Thinking that, he's sorry, it's wrong thing to do. I wish not happened. And there was silence, and they began to applaud him, and then he says, "Yes, I wish not happened, because instead I wish they bombed Boaz, Alabama." And the crowd erupted. Okay.
Oh man, Tojo was awesome. After he slowed down on the wrestling, we used him a lot as a manager, and he would just make some classic promos and stuff. That was his with that broken English and all of this stuff. That was his probably the highlight of his character, really, those interviews, those promos.
Yeah, I mean, he was, he taught a lot of people, wrestling, and Jeff Jarrett, Sid Vicious, the Moondog, Spike and Spot, Jackie Fargo, Bobby Eaton, Tommy Rich, along with Jerry Jarrett. So his handprint.
And every time he would chop somebody or do something, he would raise his arms and go, "Banzai, banzai." That was Tojo's favorite expression.
All right, so that's going to end for our little segment of Do You Remember? A lot of questions came out on Twitter. I want to save all these, and we can make this a regular like we do with Ask the King. But, King, your memory's not that bad.
Well, fortunately you hit me with some. Those are pretty easy things to remember. I mean, I'll never. I could probably sit here and come up with 1,000 Tojo Yamamoto stories. I mean, I'll never forget that guy.
Anything you want to promote or plug before we wrap the show up?
No, I think we did all that at the beginning.
Yeah. Anything else going on?
You're going to be back here on March 11th, right, for the grand opening? I'm not the grand opening. The repeat of the grand opening is the 1-year anniversary.
Well, I'll be there March 8th for the 1-year anniversary of the podcast.
Oh, there we go.
So make it a weekend spectacular in Memphis, Tennessee. How about that?
I like it.
Just get the guest room ready.
Okay. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll sleep in the garage next to the Batmobile. How about that?
Yeah. And you can use Z Quiet this time. You won't have to be snoring.
All right. Thanks to everybody who listened. Again, if you are listening and you haven't sent a photo of where you're listening, or if you're in a new spot, tweet at us at Dinner with King, at Jerry Lawler, at Glenmore CLE, and we'll give you a retweet. And that was O'Brien. It's me, O'Brien, that guy. We need to know what you do for work, buddy. Let us know what you do for work, because we're dying to know. So tweet at us, let us know. So, King, final word.
The final word is, I just picked up my phone and I got a text message from David Haskins. You know David Haskins?
David Haskins?
David Haskins wrestled for us down here in Memphis. He sort of looked like me, and he grew up just idolizing me. And then he finally got to get into the wrestling business. I helped him. It was almost like a repeat of me being Jackie Fargo and him being me. And anyway, he's just all of a sudden I just get this picture sent to me, and it's a poster. It says, "Welcome to Cleveland Hopkins International Airport," and there's the big guitar from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So apparently David has just landed in Cleveland, and he thought he should send me a text, let me know that he's up there. But anyway, David Haskins, I'll tell you some stories about him sometime. The first time he ever got to ride with me, he was such a fan who then finally got in the business. And it was like me for the first time I ever got to ride with Jackie Fargo in the same car. Just to go on a trip with him, just me and Jackie. I was just mesmerized. And David Haskins was so enthralled with being in the car with me that he got sick and threw up on me.
What? No.
He was so nervous. Oh, I mean, not just throw up. And I told you the first time Trish Stratus rode with me. It was like Stacy and I up in the WWE. She rode with us on a trip, and she just, after we were in the car 5 minutes, and she said, "Mr. Lawler," and I said, "Yeah, Trish." She's in the back seat, and she said, "Could you pull over for a minute? I think I'm going to be sick." And I'm like, "What?" Pulled over, and sure enough, she got out and she threw up, and she got back in, and she said, "I'm sorry, I'm just so nervous being in the same car with y'all."
No, that's
Yes.
No, Trish Stratus.
True story.
Wow,
And the same thing with this David Haskins. I mean, he didn't make it out of the car. He didn't even give me any warning or anything. He just all of a sudden, I'm driving along, and he just all of a sudden, he's like looking out the window, and then all of a sudden he just sort of looked over at me, and he did one of those like projectile vomiting. I mean, just spewed all across the car. Like hit me in the face and in my shirt and everything, and I'd immediately pull over and just ruin we were on our way to wrestle in Nashville, and it was just one of those crazy things where he was so nervous that he got sick to his stomach.
I remember my first time driving in the car with Jerry Lawler.
Oh boy, what was that like? Thank God you didn't vomit on me.
No vomiting. It was we were in Baltimore. There was a pay-per-view on the Sunday for Baltimore. This is back in 2011, and I was just gonna go to Raw the next night and hang out with you during the day. So, and actually, I wasn't going to intrude or ask if we could come and ride with you. I was just going to take a bus, from Baltimore to Philadelphia. It's only,
You're famous for bus riding, aren't you?
I love it. It's cheap. So then you were like, "No, just ride with me. I got to rent a car. You can just, come with me." So I'm like, "Oh wow, this is great." So I made sure I puked in the morning, so I wasn't going to puke in the car. No, I'm kidding. So met at the hotel, and I remember Kevin Nash was in the lobby.
I don't know what's wrong with people. Whenever they see me, they want to puke. Just like the old Roddy said, "I don't know, but your eyesight is perfect." So go ahead.
So we get in the car, and you had this old Crown Victoria car, large, it's like a boat of a car, driving from Philly from Baltimore to Philly. And you must have been really sleepy because you kept falling asleep at the wheel, and every time you would hit the stuff in the concrete where it wakes you up or lets you know you're driving off on the shoulder, every time you would hit those bumps, you would wake up. So here I am, sitting next to one of my favorite all-time wrestlers ever, and he's falling asleep at the wheel, and I don't want to tell him to wake up because I don't want to offend the guy, So your fault.
You still don't get that rib. I used to use that on Jerry Jarrett all the time.
God, well, I didn't know.
I'd be driving, and of course you're sitting to my right.
Right.
So what I would do is I would close my right eye. I'd keep my left eye open, and then I'd ease over till I'm off the side of the road. And of course you're looking over at me. It looks like I'm sound asleep, and I'd ease over till I'm hit the gravel or something like that. Then I'd jerk back on the road and look up, and you go, "Are you asleep?" I'm trying to get you to say, "Let me drive." See, that used to work every time with Jerry Jarrett. Every single trip we'd make together, I'd start driving, and it'd be like a 200-mile trip. So I'd go about 40, 50 miles, and then I'd act like I'd close my right eye, start going off the side of the road, and he'd go, oh, pull over, I'll drive. And so then I'd make him drive the rest of the trip. I was just trying to get you to drive.
I was scared to death. I was like, I don't want to say anything because it's Jerry Lawler, I'm like, is he sleeping or what is he doing? And then you're on your phone. You were trying to buy some, I think, Amazon Kindle or something. So you're on your phone buying Kindles while you're driving, and you're quote unquote sleepy. I was like, well, if I'm going to die, this is going to be a great way to Jerry the King.
You'll have a good story to tell, but you won't be able to tell it again.
No story. But we made it safely to Philadelphia, and I kissed the ground when I got out of the car.
Well, I wasn't really falling asleep. Trust me. I was
good.
Trying to get you to drive.
All right. Well, there goes the stories for this week's episode. We'll be back next week. We won't celebrate 1 year. Well, maybe we will. It's going to be a few days
next
before.
week.
Yeah, I think it's a few days before March 8th, our next show.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We may.
Yeah, be March 7th will be our next show. So we'll celebrate 1 year, and, Dirty Dutch has offered to come on the show, and Jeff Jerry wants to come back on. So you never know who might stop by for dinner with the
Never
King.
know.
So
Never know.
We'll talk to you guys next week. I want to thank everybody for listening for the show throughout the whole year. Just been awesome seeing everybody interact with the show on Twitter and social media, but also let us know in person that they love the podcast. So here's to 1 year. We'll celebrate 1 year next week, King.
All right. Great. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.